Good morning again, everybody. Welcome to Unity of Metairie.
Good morning.
So, yeah, you were talking about, can't believe it's Advent already. It's the holiday season, y'all. We just finished up Thanksgiving, and now it's the 1st of December. We're in that time of celebrating miracles. And the big three, Christmas on the 25th of December, and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, they actually fall on the same starting day this year, the 26th. So we've got Christmas, and then everybody else starts the day after. We've got Christmas, celebrating the miracle of Jesus' birth. Kwanzaa has 7 principles that celebrate the miracle of individuals coming together, creating, and contributing to community. And then Hanukkah, celebrating the miracle of one day of lamp oil miraculously lasting for 8. It's a season of peace and joy and goodwill towards men, right?
Right.
But as many of us know, the holidays are not joyous for everyone. Many people are not holly and jolly at this time of year. And it's many things. There are many things that could contribute. They could be grieving a loss of someone or something. They could be financially stressed. They could just be burnt out all the way around and just doing the best that they can. I'd like to speak to all of these people right now. And what I'd like to say is, whatever your feelings are, they're valid, and you are allowed to have them. Whatever emotions you're feeling about what's going on in your life right now, it is okay. You are allowed to not be okay during the holidays. If it's your first holiday without a loved one, or your second, or your third, or 10th, and you're grieving, that's okay. You are allowed. Because as I've said before, there is no timeline for grief. Nobody else gets to decide how long or how you grieve. If you're stressed or having anxiety about whatever your current situation is, you are allowed to feel that. With stress and anxiety, though, I always like to stress it's important. Like to stress about stress. It's important to get that out. Emotional meltdowns are sometimes necessary to get that stress and anxiety out. I remember the phrase having a good cry, because sometimes you just need to cry, and there might not be a catalyst, there might not be a specific reason like that you're sad, but it's just to release whatever. But it's important to do that, to get that stress out so that your brain can start working properly again. Because you can't problem solve or make good decisions when you're stressed out, especially if you're stressed to your maximum level. But sometimes you can't get that emotional release that you know you need because the stress either gets stuck in your body or sometimes it's coming from your body. It's not necessarily because of your thoughts. It's in here. I had some pretty severe anxiety a few years ago, and my therapist told me that I was telling her I was having trouble because I was so up with the anxiety, and I would feel like I needed to cry, and it would be like right there behind my eyes, but it wouldn't come. Like I couldn't get it to come out that way. And she told me the next time that I felt like that, to go do something physical, like run up and down some steps, or just like go for a brisk walk, or if you can't get outside and you don't have any stairs, like do some burpees. I hate them, but they're like, it's a surefire way to get your heart rate up and get your body like moving and doing something strenuous. Because that you just have to get that out, because if you leave it there, it'll wreak havoc on your actual physical body, not just your thought processes. So I always, I stress that about stress and anxiety. Don't let it just sit there. Like, do something to get that out of your body. If you're just burned out and just over it all, then you need rest. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I can recommend some good guided meditations for y'all. I'll put links for them on our Facebook page and on the website too. On Insight Timer, my very, very favorite meditation app. But the most important thing to remember about all of this is that you are allowed to have whatever feelings you have and to express those feelings. Now, I would like to talk to everyone else, everyone who may have someone in their lives who is experiencing any of the situations I just spoke about. It's important, maybe even more so, for y'all to remember that they are allowed to not be okay, and that all of their feelings and emotions are allowed and valid. I know that's a really tough thing sometimes for friends, family. People can get really judgy, and it's sort of like there are some reasons for that you may have misinterpreted the law of attraction and manifesting. Like, yeah, it doesn't require you to be happy and joyous every second of every day. That is impossible, because we're human people. We are not perfect. We have brains that think. We get upset about things. It's okay. Sometimes, as the person on the outside, it is not your job to solve the problem or even tell them what you think about it. He was like, oh, what do you mean? That was a great face. Yes, sometimes your job is just to listen and maybe ask some questions, because sometimes a pity party is necessary. Sometimes that's part of the whole purge of the negativity, the feelings that are in there. If there's something that you can do to help the situation, sure, ask if you can do that. But if you can't help the situation that they're in, leave their feelings and their thoughts alone. Sometimes just being able to say things out loud to another human being without being dismissed or made to feel like your thoughts or feelings are wrong can help clarify the situation and help the thinking process. It's all part of the stressing out. Sometimes I find just saying whatever it is out loud and getting it out of my head and saying it to another person, sometimes you'll hear it different than when it's just going around and around in your brain. And it will help you make sense of whatever it is. Sometimes you'll hear how ridiculous it sounds, and you'll be like, oh, now that I said that out loud and heard it, okay, yeah, I can calm down about it, because it's ridiculous for me to be as upset as I am. But sometimes it requires the other human to ask you questions about it, to clarify what it is exactly that you mean. And that can help as well, because they get stuck in a loop. If you don't get them out, you're just going to go round and round. It's like this vicious cycle. So sometimes you're just be a sounding board. And sometimes the person won't be able to tell you if you ask them, do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to help? Blah, blah. Sometimes they're just like, I don't know. So you just like, okay, just tell me. And then let them blurt out whatever they're going to blurt out and then go from there. And lastly, on this part of it, if your person is grieving, especially if it's fresh, just shut up and listen. Or just leave them alone for a while. Especially if it's a new loss, because they may not want to interact with you about that right then. And you know what? Just let them do it on their own time, right? But the long and short of it is, we need to be there for each other. And sometimes being there means not really doing anything, but being there. Sometimes your presence is all that's necessary, because so that the other person knows that you are there. And now that I have said it's okay to not be okay, I need to take the flip side of that and remind everybody, especially grieving people, especially if it's a fresh loss, it's also okay to be okay at the holidays. Joy and pain, struggle and peace, happiness and sadness. We often think of these things as either or. You can either be that or this. Either happy or sad, grieving or feeling joy. But that's just not the way the reality works of it. It's not how our emotions work. Now, I'm not saying fake it till you make it. I'm not saying pushing off your grief and pretending that you're okay for other people. We're not talking about trying to repress any of our emotions. What I'm talking about are those genuinely momentary lapses of sadness or grief. When you laugh at a funny joke, when you feel joy at someone else's accomplishment or someone else's joy about something, or when you have a good time while you're visiting your friends and family, or you just suddenly feel happy for a little while because you're surrounded by happiness. We have this idea, and I've been through this, and I'm sure that everybody else who's ever lost an important human, we have this idea that if we're going through difficulty that involves difficult emotions, then we're only allowed to feel that until you're finished. Or, especially with grief, like I said, when it's fresh, that you're never allowed to be happy again. It's like that survivor's guilt. We can get really, really judgy. People get judgy with other people, and we get really judgy with ourselves when that happens. I remember, and I was young when my mom died. I was just 9. But I remember going through this, like you hit Christmas time and you're around family and friends and somebody does something stupid and you laugh and you have a good time for a few hours during the day, and then you get home and you realize, oh my God, I had a good time. I'm never supposed to have a good time. And then you spend the next 3 hours crying because you feel guilty because you're supposed to be grieving. And it's like, that's not how it works. Grief is an up and down process. And why deny yourself a momentary break from all of it? That's the judgy with ourselves part. And then the other people judgy, the big example I can think of is the first Mardi Gras after Katrina. We had Mardi Gras, as well as we could do it. And I remember it being like on the news. Like there were newscasters in other parts of the country who were being all snarky about that we were having Mardi Gras. And it was almost like a how dare us, like everything was destroyed, blah, blah, blah. We're just supposed to be miserable and stinky forever. Like, no, man, we needed a break. We needed to take time to celebrate the fact of all the people who survived, to lift up the people who like lost everything, to let them know they still had a community. I mean, and seriously, like, what did they think New Orleans was going to do? Like, just not party ever again? Come on. But no, I remember that. I remember the Judgy McJudgesters from, and they weren't from here. It wasn't the people in the Gulf Coast. They were like, yeah, we need Mardi Gras. Y'all, we need to have a party and and celebrate. And other people in the country just, like, either they didn't get it, or, you know, it's like other people thinking it wasn't appropriate behavior. And it's like, you don't get to decide what's appropriate. We're the ones who are grieving. You know? You don't like it? Don't watch the newscast. You know, like, and like I had said briefly before, we don't get to decide how other people grieve or deal with any struggle. We don't get to decide how. We don't get to decide when. We don't get to decide how long. None of that is up to anyone but the person who's grieving. And sometimes it's not even up to them. Because grief will reach out and smack you. Like, you think you're fine, and then you see some stupid Hallmark commercial, and you start crying, like, blithering all over the place, and you're like, I don't even know why I'm crying. And it was just because it hit you. And sometimes that takes a really, like, years. It could be years later, and you're like, oh, I've dealt with it. I've embodied it. And then, no, something will happen, and you'll crumble like a little puddle on the floor, and then you'll be okay again. It's like, it never ends, it just gets better. But sometimes we just need to go through stuff, however it happens. But once again, all of our emotions are valid, and we're allowed to feel and express all of them. So once again, I will say, give yourself a break. Give yourself some slack. Give yourself some grace. Give all the people around you who may be going through something, anything that you may or may not know about, cut them some slack. Geez, you know? And it's fine that you're not fine right now, but it's also perfectly fine if you are for a while. Try not to beat yourself up for feeling happy for a little while. Especially, it's all those shoulds. I shouldn't be, because I should be like this. I shouldn't be having this happy. I have all this other stuff. Or I should be missing this person that I just lost, and I should always feel like that forever and ever and never be happy again. You know, it's like, it's all these ways of like flogging ourselves for just being human. You know, don't shame yourself for not being sad enough or upset enough about your situation. And I put, for crying out loud. And don't shame other people, whether you know them or not, for not behaving the way that you think they should. That's the big thing. We don't get to decide for other people. Sometimes we don't even get to decide for ourselves how we handle things, how we behave. So just, you know, be kind to each other. Give yourself a break. Give other people a break. And let's just take care of each other this holiday season. How about that? Does that sound like a good idea? I think it sounds like a good idea. And with that, that's all I got to say. Namaste, and happy Sunday, y'all, and happy holidays.